really excited to share with you this incredible knowledge from an incredible herbalist that I am really excited to introduce in just a few minutes. So we'll orient a little bit about who we are as Ecoversity, Stephen and I, and then we'll get into the lesson. So just hold tight for a little bit, grab your tea, and we'll get ready. Go ahead,
Mm.
Joe. Go ahead, Stephen.
So yeah, I just Lex and I are the co-founders of Ecoversity, and we met over 20 years ago at a wedding. And I have been down here in Costa Rica for the last 30 years and was teaching a permaculture course that Lex was a student in. And she came and joined the course and like really just rocked my world with just how incredible she was, and decided I also am one of the founders of a festival here called Envision Festival, and immediately like realized we really need your support, Lex. Are you willing to be the marketing director of our festival? It's in 3 months. And she agreed, and we did that together for several years, and then both realized that we wanted to fully dedicate to just to the educational part of what we were doing there. And that's kind of where Ecoversity was born. Is just some of the most important things on earth that we need to be learning and teaching are not available in just the regular system. So yeah, that's where Ecoversity was born, and it's such an honor, and I'm so grateful that 322 of you have decided to be here with us today.
Thanks so much, Stephen. And yeah, before I met or did that permaculture class, I was actually driving a 1979 RV across the country, and I interviewed 250 millennials because I was like, what are we going to do about the fact that they said water is going to run out? I was just supposed to get a cushy job. And then I met Stephen, who was like living the solutions at, oh, my earring fell out. That was living the solutions at Punta Mona, and being able to collaborate and watch an incredible body of land really come to life for 25 years was really an incredible privilege. And it's really incredible to be able to be with you today, offering you this kind of education worldwide so we can all learn together. Jal, you can head to the next slide. All right. So if you can be present, it's kind of like watching a person on stage. It's really kind to give them your energy and presence. And even though we're so many places around the world, if you can, it's great to turn off your do not disturb so you can be totally present. If you're a mama, if you're driving, it's totally good. But for those of us that can, it does actually create a field of presence for Asia, who's offering her time today. So if you can, we really ask that your presence be given here for the next 2 hours. And of course, there's a recording. I see a couple questions coming. So if you miss anything, you can get it later. But thank you so much for being present with us today. Go ahead, Ja. And check your email at the end. We've got some special offerings from both Ecoversity and Bones, Bugs, and Botany for spending your time with us today. We have this really beautiful Herbal Calm book that our team has spent a lot of time creating. It's over 60 pages for those of us that have like nervous system regulation. The recording will be in there.
All of us, we all need that.
Yeah, seriously. In these times, if you don't have a dysregulated nervous system, you're probably really good at not watching the news, which is good for you. And if you want to text, people really like to text and not watch their emails too. You're welcome to text that number on the screen for those free resources and some special offers. It's only to US numbers, but if that's easier for you, feel free to text and stay in touch, and you'll get all those resources in that way as well. Go ahead, Jolly. And thank you, Jolly. She's the woman behind the scenes working our this PowerPoint. So thank you. And
Yeah, and
I think
beyond
we
that,
kind of
just like
go ahead.
getting, yeah, just, I've spoken a little about Ecoversity in general, but really trying, the world is in such a hell of a mess. And yeah, I think the word that's just coming up for me right now is just sovereignty. Like, how can we become less dependent on a system that's clearly not working? Whether we're talking about healthcare, we're talking about education, or we're talking about agriculture, there's so much that we can't wait for our government, or we can't wait for somebody else to start making these changes. And then that's really where Lex and I came together and said, we got to, she took the course at Punta Mona, and she's like, Stephen, it's great that you're teaching, 20 or 30 people at a time, but like, we need this out to the masses, and I want to help you do it. And so, yeah, that's really what Ecoversity is an earth-based education platform. And yeah, really, really trying to really trying to do things different. And it's filled. I think one thing that I just, for my reflection, is I teach the permaculture courses, is that like between like the, say, a couple thousand people that have graduated in the last, 5 years, like that literally is reflecting thousands of acres around the world. There's people from countries all over the world in our class. I think that's actually what the next slide says, is like we've had thousands and thousands of students from, 147 countries around the world. And all of those students are affecting the land around them. They're affecting, obviously, themselves. They're affecting their families. They're affecting their communities. So what we're doing here really feels like it's having such a profound ripple effect out. And you're a part of it. So thank you so much for being here today. I hope some of the things that you learn will improve your life and your family's life.
Yeah, and just like what Stephen was saying, I think one of the brilliant things, and like we all know that there are pros and cons to technology, but being able to cross-pollinate from different cultures and teachers from around the world, like Stephen's coming from Costa Rica, you see how many people are coming in from the chat. We actually get to share, like, what did your grandmother give you when you had a cold? And there's real cross-pollination in there where we can actually learn beautiful things from around the world instead of having to take a plane there, even though that might be something we want to do too, that makes it affordable for us to actually have that cross-pollination and not feel so alone in the world of so many problems. So we really take a lot of pride in that and making sure that we're able to give access to the wisdom keepers around the world and offer education here at Ecoversity. You can head to the next slide, Joel. And I think because of that, like because of what you see in the chat and how we stay really connected, like you'll see someone's like, I want to go to the farmer's market in London. And someone's like, yeah, me too. Like start a thread and all of a sudden there's a WhatsApp thread and people are making friends from all over the world. And we have 3 times that national average of our industry rate for completion of classes. And we think that's really because our community together, along with our teachers, really creates this atmosphere of togetherness in a world that's really separated. So we're really proud of that here in Ecoversity. We hope you get the taste of that today. And yeah, you can go to the next one, Joe.
And that's why we love everybody to say where you're from, because all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I felt so alone and you're right down the street from me. That's incredible. And yeah, the 100-hour herbalism program, when we first started, thinking about doing this, it started in many ways. I have a deep relationship with Rosemary Gladstar. She used to run these plant lovers journeys to Costa Rica. And one of my best friends, Susan Leopold, runs her nonprofit and reached out to me and says, yeah, she wants to run trips to Costa Rica. Are you interested? And, I feel like my whole adult life has been dedicated to bridging humans with the plant world. And I was like, yes, I want to do that with her. And we ran, I can't remember, 4 or 5 or 6 of them. So I got to spend like 50 days intimate with her. And when we first had the idea to do this, she was the first person I reached out to. And then, checking in with her, who do you think we should be bringing in, and like, who are some of your favorite herbalists? And yeah, I don't know if anything like this has ever really happened, where this many different, just such wisdom from so many different places has come together to deliver, yeah, just a product quite like this.
Thanks, Stephen. And yeah, it's so beautiful. Just I see people dropping what their grandmothers did when they're sick. It's like warms my spirit. Thank you, Miguel and Ayana. It's so nice to see. You can go to the next one, Joel. Yeah, and I'm so excited to introduce Asia Dorsey. She's a bioregional herbalist and founder of Bones, Bugs, and Botany. You came here today to really learn. Thanks for listening with us for the last 5 minutes or 10 minutes. She's raised in the historic Five Points community, the Harlem of the West, by a collective of radical women, which I've gotten to hear a lot about, infusing her with the spirit of jazz and the ethics of discernment. She's rooted in ancestral wisdom from the graduate studies in food and nutrition at NYU and decades-long apprenticeship, which I've also heard a lot about, far and wide, big, deep experience with herbalists and wisdom keepers on nearly every continent. She has traveled a lot. You get to hear some cool stories from Asia. Decades of organizing through Kingian nonviolence left her burnt out and pushing Asia towards healing justice, where she reclaimed her bodies through remineralization, living foods, and local weeds, bones, bugs, and botany. She now scales healing through liberated education, mentorship, and building the movement of herbal medicine as people's medicine. She's one of the herbalists in our 100-hour herbalism program. She's an incredible teacher, student, friend, and one of the most intelligent beings I've met. So I'm really grateful to be introducing you to Asia today and
And
your
one of the most contagious smiles. My goodness. I
this is
look at your smile and I can't, I have like my cheeks hurt.
So thank you so much for joining us. And for all of you today, you're in for such, oh wow, 377. There we go. Thanks for showing up to learn today. I'm going to hand it over to Asia. Blessings. Thank you, Asia, so much.
Go. Go. Yes, you can.
Oh my goodness. Hello, hello, hello. Look at all of these beautiful faces on the line. I'm just scrolling through, y'all. Scrolling through. And before we begin, I want us to ground in. So we're going to begin with the breath. I want you to inhale all of the beauty that surrounds us. And I want you to exhale the states of mind that distract you from it. Inhale beauty and exhale distraction. I want you to notice. Maybe notice the flow of air on your skin, the feeling of your flesh meeting the cushion that you're sitting on. Notice the warmth of your breath entering through your nostrils. Or maybe it's cool. Notice where your shoulders are, how close they are to your ears. Notice maybe the annoyance of me having you notice anything at all. Welcome. So today we are going to begin this practice with some of the most powerful practices that we have of rooting down, which is to practice social forms of relationship. And so what I'm proposing, there's lots of people here today, is there's a game that I want to play with you. And this game is called the noticing game. Now, it's important to note that whether or not you choose to play the game with us, that there will still be activities for you to do. But this game helps us to regulate our nervous systems in the way that we were designed, which is with relationship. And so the way that it works is we will be with two other folks in a breakout room, and we will say, sitting here with you, I notice. And you get to notice the things about the other, maybe their posture, their dress, or something in their background. And the person who is being noticed, they say, hearing that, I notice. And maybe they notice something that's happening in their body. Maybe they notice a feeling or sensation that's coming up. Maybe they notice something about the other person. But in any respect, the two people going back and forth notice, and the third person is the sacred observer. And we're going to spend about 4 minutes in breakout rooms playing the noticing game, and then we're going to come back out here. But before we go into the breakout rooms, I would love for someone to demonstrate with me so that you can see if this is something that you would like to do or not. So, who would like to demonstrate?
I will
All
want.
right. Do we have Nellie?
Hello. Oh,
Hi.
how are you? I'm trying to undo my video. Okay, I don't know if that worked or not. I'm trying.
It's okay. It's okay. Thank you so much for demonstrating. We want to show folks what it's like so that they can decide to play or not. And if you decide not to play, we're going to have our own activity outside of the breakout room. So no worries. So do you want to notice or you want to be noticed first?
I guess notice me first so I can understand exactly.
All right, Nelly. Did I say your name right?
Yes.
Okay. Nelly was my grandma's favorite rapper.
I get to confirm. I love that. That's your grandma. That's awesome.
So Nelly, sitting here with you, the first thing I notice is your smile and the dimples at the side of your face.
Mm. Thanks.
And then you say, hearing that, I notice.
Okay. Hearing that, I notice a calm and sense of peace about your face, and it radiates light.
Hearing that, I notice my smile broadening and my clavicles. And
Okay, so what do I do? Hearing what you said, I have to.
then you say, hearing that, what do you notice about yourself?
Um, Hearing that, I notice a cool breeze.
Mm. Hearing that, I also notice a cool breeze.
Hearing that, I notice the birds chirping.
Mm. And imagining that, I'm noticing myself feeling more and more relaxed. Okay. All right.
Cool.
Thank you, Nelly. Y'all, give Nelly applause. Thanks for practicing that. So there were some of you who were like, nah, sis, I'm not playing. And that is absolutely perfect. And there are some of you who are like, yeah, I'm going to try it on. It might be edgy, but I want to see what it's like. And so now we are going to give you the opportunity to try it on. You'll have 4 minutes in the breakout room to play the noticing game. We're going to hear back from the sacred observers. And for those of you who aren't in the breakout room, the question that I have for you and what I want to hear is, what is it that you want to get out of today? What are you here for? What are you here for? So we're going to transition folks who decide to play to their breakout rooms. And then I would love to begin hearing from folks who don't want to play what they're here for. So the breakout room should open briefly. And we will begin that. And then for those of you who would like to answer the inquiry of what you're here for, I would love to get your voices into the space and hear from you. Okay, Julie. I would love to hear from you as well. Jamie's here to be re-inspired about her relationships to plants, the earth, and the work towards pursuing living more connected with them. Some folks can't participate, but they can listen without needing to speak, and that is a-okay. So folks are going into the breakout rooms. Love to see it. Some breakout rooms have 4 people. And so those breakout rooms are beginning. And so yeah, who would like to talk to the group a little bit about what they're here for? Glutinous for passionate folks. Okay, Monica.
I
Maybe
didn't
they
have
can.
anyone in my breakout group.
I didn't either.
Me neither.
Oh no. Okay, well, we'll get it together.
It takes a
And
little while to usher 300 people into the room. So maybe if you're alone, they're just coming in. So thank you for your patience.
yes, and yeah, folks in the breakout rooms have about 3 minutes left. So, um, okay, folks are here to learn something new. Ooh, somebody wants herb farmers in Kentucky. Ooh, love to hear it. Uh, okay, connect with myself, reconnect with plants and spring renewal. Oh my goodness, y'all. When they say spring renewal, what's fascinating is that every single organ is linked with a season. And the one organ system that is rumored to promote longevity, right, is the liver. This idea of an organ and a way of being that is able to perpetuate long, long life. So, spring renewal is powerful. And during the spring, this is the season where we have the most opportunity to restore and repair our livers. And so you all are here right now, right on time. Hopefully, this knowledge can help prolong life, okay? Help you age well. Um, okay, so folks are here to continue learning ancestral skills. Ooh, 4 months pregnant. Okay, congratulations. Okay, love to see it.
Thank you.
Yes, yes, I love that you're here. Um, mm, we're not talking about it yet, but since we folks are in the breakout room, yellow dock was one of my favorite ancestral remedies for Black folk midwives. And they would combine yellow dock with molasses to help expectant mothers to move their bowels and to restore their iron stores. And what's fascinating about yellow dock and iron is that it has to be coupled with an iron-rich plant or an iron-rich substance because the plant itself doesn't have a lot of iron in it, especially in the roots. So shout out to you in your pregnancy, and I hope that it is going beautifully. Alexa said yellow dock was one of the first plants that they worked with. Beautiful. Okay, y'all, it's almost time to bring the folks back. Um, Beautiful. They have about a minute. Okay, we see you're here to help improve, see how you can improve your health and feel accompanied by the energetics. Yes, beautiful. Learn about roots. Yellow Dock is amazing. It is. Learn something new. You just figured out the chat. Beautiful. All right, so the rest of our siblings will be joining us soon.
What
Um,
happened?
I think folks are coming back, and the process isn't perfect. One of my favorite patterns of the spring is instability. Spring is a season where we're working with freeze and thaws, depending on where you are in the world, of course. But those freeze and those thaws, it creates this oscillation, right? One of my favorite teachings about the spring is the same teaching about the rhythms of the heart.
That was so lovely.
Okay, folks are returning. Folks are returning. I'm so happy to see you all back. We were vibing out here in the weight room, and I would love to hear. Gina loved it. Jess said that was amazing. Wow. Okay. Okay. I'm so happy to hear y'all are enjoying. So, who would like to come on and share their experience of the noticing game? All right, Maria. Marla. Hi,
Hi.
Marla.
Hi, everybody. I'm Marla. It was too fast. I had such a wonderful exchange. And here's the thing. I was gonna be in the waiting room. Okay. Like I didn't choose it. I just felt like I'm just gonna see what this is all about. I'm open, but when you modeled it, it was such a beautiful exchange. Then I wanted to share that with someone else today. And the person I had was Sheila, and I have to find her in this 300 and something mass of people because it was just so beautiful. I felt like I was just sitting with someone I had met before. It felt really safe. It felt, she used the word Simona about, I see you. And that was new to me, but it felt familiar. And that's the best way I can encapsulate the exchange, that it just felt so reassuring. And so it was the best speed date of my life.
Okay. Oh, thank
But
you
not
so
a date, but just, you know what I mean? Like not to
much.
trivialize the exchange, but yeah, it was beautiful.
Thank you so much, Marla. I really appreciate that. And yes, um, glad to hear it. And we do have to move on because we we got some work. But what I wanted to share and why I spent our time opening in that way is that human beings evolved to be with each other. And for you to develop the capacity to be with these plants, you have to notice them. You have to listen for their response, listen to how they shift when they are noticed by you. And then you have to see and notice and feel the different places in your body that are activated when in relationship to these plants. And so, this social meditation, right? This social relating is the same kind of way of being that we can apply to the people who aren't seen by us, the people who need to be seen by us. And this is how we build relationships, not only with the plant world, but also with the more than human world. Well, in humans. So, um, we are going to move to the next slide here. And we're going to talk a little bit about what root work is and where I'm coming from with this knowledge and why it matters. Why does this matter? So root work is the traditional African American body mind practice of herbalism that suffuses plant wisdom and healing with practical applications that impact our lives in the everyday way. All right, so one example is in root work. We have lots of washes. We wash the body, we wash the floors, we wash the walls. Well, one of my best friends was impacted by the recent fires in LA. And part of what she had to do to sit with the trauma of her home nearly being destroyed and her body being poisoned by the toxic dust was a practice of cleaning house. In order to remove some of the contaminants, she literally had to practice floor washes and wall washes and ceiling washes. She had to wash all of her clothes and all of her objects. And that washing, it helped me to understand that the practices that we grow up with, those practices of taking your shoes off by the door or how to, sweep from which corner to this corner, like all of those actually come into play when we're dealing with catastrophe. And so root work helps us to embody certain practices that prolong our lives and our livelihoods. Root work is fascinating because it insists on a relationship between the inner world and the outer world. Root work says that who you are and what you're doing can impact who they are and what they're doing, and that we can shift ourselves in order to shift the external circumstances around us. The best practices of root work, because there are many different kinds of practices, but the best practices are those that regenerate, those that create what we like to call cultures of regeneration. So root work, and to some extension conjure and hoodoo, and these are all very different terms, but a lot of traditional African American practices have been commodified, packaged so that they can be bought and sold as little trinkets and bags and spells and things like that, right? And when you think you're working roots, someone's just sending you some ashy ass herbs that have no connection to where you are or what you need. And there's no relationship of those herbs and how they work to your body. And so when we are talking about root work, we're not talking about a curio shop. We're talking about a practice that relates us deeply to the place where we are. So one of my favorite thinkers, Katrina Duke Hazard, she has a phenomenal text called Mojo Working, and she describes root workers as folks who guarded secrets and proper procedures for harvesting, processing, and working certain roots. And they also knew the scope and specifics of plants and their powers. So many Black herbalists were assigned the title root worker or root doctor because they held the knowledge of plants, stones, and animals, and they could use that knowledge towards physical and psycho-spiritual impact. And every root worker is unique. Next slide. A beautiful. So every single root worker, and that's you, whether you're a root worker, an herbalist, anything that you choose to call yourself, you are a unique expression of both your ancestors, the bioregion that you're currently in, and the teachers that you have in your lifetime. Each one of us has these 3 footprints, right? And these three footprints inform sort of what our practice is and how it's created. Next slide. So the wisdom of our blood ancestors. I know that there are so many beautiful people listening to this conversation, and who you are actually matters. Where your ancestors are from, and that could be 2 generations ago, it could be your parents, it could be 10 generations ago, but where they're from, that matters. So my ancestors are from Nigeria and Congo in West and Central Africa. And what that means is that my interaction with vitamins, for example, vitamin K2, people who have bloodlines on the equator are about 4 times more efficient at converting plant vitamins into the usable human forms, right? I just traveled to Iceland. And in Iceland, for 1,000 years, folks there have eaten a non-plant-based diet. They've focused specifically on fish and sheep in the diet, and they have thrived with that kind of food. And even so, the introduction of plant-based foods is not necessarily something that's as useful because digesting those foods requires enzymes that may or may not be present in those bodies who were used to eating animals, right? So our ancestry shapes our relationship to what foods work best for us. There's no one size fits all. And most of us have mixed ancestry, which means that we actually have to try and see what actually is going to fit. But my ancestors, my ancestors let me know that the best form of vitamins for me is going to come from collard greens. Okay. And there's so much more. There's so many things about our genetic dispositions to different diseases, etc. We've been taught to think that there is one model for a body, and there's not. We are all grounded. We have all adapted to the places where our ancestors are from, and that informs how we should eat to live today. All right. So I practice an ancestral nutrition, and whoever I work with, I have to know who their ancestors are, and that's how we determine the kinds of foods that they eat. The next thing that is important for all of us is to understand the wisdom of the people who stewarded the land before us. So I am a Central West African girly. I'm from the tropics, and I live on the Cheyenne, Ute, and Arapaho territories, also known as Colorado. And that means something, right? I have blood cells that are adapted to malaria. They're not adapted to high altitude. So my body likes to pass out at high altitudes, right? And so what that means for me is that I have had to learn from the indigenous people of this land how they live to survive. My diet, as someone in Colorado, includes red meat, just like every single group of people who live at an altitude like this, because my body requires more heme iron. And so by following the patterns, the traditions, and the living ways of the First Nations people on these lands, I have been able to adapt to my home, irrespective of what my body is. And that is one of the reasons why First Nations peoples and their knowledge ways are so significant. And when you're forming your root work practice, it should be informed by the people who stewarded the land where you are. This brings us to bioregional herbalism. The herbs that are growing where you are the herbs that are for you. Okay. The medicine is right outside your doors. And what's fascinating is the herbs that are growing where you are adapt to the needs of the beings in that bioregion. So rose hips, for example, have up to 4 times more vitamin C out here in Colorado than they do in California. And so if we are eating bioregionally and practicing bioregional herbal medicine, we're actually getting the specific compounds that are there for us. And this helps us to make better decisions, okay? Working with the local herbs, and the most local herbs are the weeds. These are the fastest, quickest adapting, most powerful and profound beings that actually meet us exactly where we are with the medicines that we need, and they're usually outside our doors. And so that's why our practice of bioregional root work centers the weeds that are common, the weeds that are simple, safe, and effective. Next slide. And lastly, y'all, the last footprint is the wisdom of our teachers in this lifetime. So one of the questions that you should always ask any teacher is, what gives you the authority to tell me anything? You should be suspicious. You should have questions. And so because I want you to be a discerning herbalist, a petty herbalist, it's important that you know where my teachers come from. In this lifetime, I have inherited the teachings of the wise women tradition of herbal medicine at terrible costs. All right. I've also been in deep practice and learning from folks and from Chinese medicine. And so my root work is suffused with 5-element theory from my teachers like Lonnie Jarrett, Euthymia Cruz Montoya, shout out, and Marco Lamb. And so my root work, which is a combination of my ancestors and our ancestral food, a combination of the lands where I roam, and then the combinations of my teacher is going to, that's what it is. That's how it is as a root worker. So my root work is going to be different from my girlies in North Carolina. I love y'all. But welcome to this practice, and I hope that you find these teachings to be useful. Next slide. All right, so this work, in today's practice, we are going to explore the inner workings of our bodies and the outer workings of the roots in our lives to address the body-mind disharmonies that arise specifically during the spring. And we're going to meet these disharmonies with simple, safe, and powerful herbal remedies, okay? And so when it comes to spring is the season, and this is five element theory, which I really, really love. We can also call it five phases. So the first phase is spring, y'all. In the springtime, we want to be eating spring greens. We want to be cooking with less fat. We want to be cooking in lots of water. We're keeping it light, keeping it tight, right? In the spring, there are so many cultures around the world who practice fasting, right? My neighbors next door, they got that young Ramadan. I can't wait to go eat when the sun goes down, right? And so it's actually, our cultures have already shown us that spring is a season of less. And traditionally, the spring was a time when our ancestors would be starving because it's at this time that most of the winter stored foods would run out. So the practice of fasting is actually a response to the reality of how much food you can store over the winter. The animals in the spring are very lean, and our ancestors did not like to hunt animals that didn't have the right amount of fat. Right? Fat, especially animal fat, is sacred. Yep, we got Lent. Shout out to Lent. Daniel's fast, okay? And so the spring is a season of less, right? Some of my favorite traditions from spring, one Nowruz, I think, from my Persian girlies, shout out. They really focus on, part of it is they sprout, right? They're using sprouts. It's embedded in ritual and ceremony because around us, things are sprouting. All right, Liz, love to see it. Things are sprouting. And so spring is associated with the element of wood. And like, yes, Nowruz, we got it. And like wood, we want to have the capacity of bending without breaking. So the wood element is beautiful, but what I love is that these five elements are also in West African medicine. And the wood element, West African traditional religions, and the wood element can also be expanded to understand the element of plants itself. Okay. So the purpose of the spring is to move. We want to move with fluidity and flexibility. The energies of the spring are rising up from the earth. This is what's causing all of the things around us to grow, as this rising energy. And in our bodies, if our lymphatic system, if our digestive system, if our liver is congested, then those rising energies can get stuck. And when those rising energies get stuck, it shows up in our world as anger. It shows up in our world as frustration. Spring is a season, especially if people are working with alcohol. This is a no alcohol season. That's why we have the Lent, because alcohol exacerbates and harms the liver and the metabolic system, right? And so this is when people are going to be popping off. Okay. This is when you wake up in your body and you're like this. Oh, it's terrible. And so the root that I work with, the root that I call on first, is the root that helps me to get things moving. And that root is burdock. All right. Burdock and becoming unstuck. Shout out. So let's type in the chat if you have access to that. Who is burdock? What do you know burdock for? You grow it. Okay. Farms, yoga, you have dried burdock. Oh, you love the root. Digestive. Gobo. Okay, gobo is so special. Yes, we love gobo. People are having burdock tea. It's in the community. It's deep and it's thick. Does it pickle well? Yes, it does. There's wild burdock growing around you. You grate it raw, you ferment it, candy it. Ooh, burdock and honey and soups. Okay. All right. Let's, okay. Yes, I love all these comments coming in. You fry the stalk, Stephanie. Shh. Next level. All right, so let's talk a little bit about burdock. So in Chinese medicine and in herbal medicine, in Western medicine, we acknowledge that herbs have a specific affinity for different organ systems. So what's fascinating is burdock is known as as a blood purifier, but also a skin tonic. The more you use burdock, the more beautiful your skin is. And one of the inquiries is why. So one of the practices that I hold is plant apprenticeships. So I will work with plants sometimes for 3 months, sometimes for a year, and I will allow the plant to speak to me and to understand, and I could see it working in my body. And so burdock is strongly associated with the gallbladder. So the physical gallbladder, it's paired with the liver. The liver produces the bile, and the gallbladder is seen as storing it. So the gallbladder empties and it refills the bile, the bile stores. It contributes to the regulation and composition of bile. It controls the flow of bile. Remember, I said that in the spring we have less fat, right? And that's because fat is digested with bile. The bile emulsifies the fat, and the end products of that fat don't take the normal route as like carbohydrates or proteins. The end products of those fats actually move into our lymphatic system, lymphatic system. And so one of the ways that burdock supports the beautification of our skin is actually by slowing and supporting the distribution of fats in our body. It brings the nourishment, it moves stuck lymph, and in that, it also helps to regulate the fascia, which is a master sort of communication system of our body. And so one of the reasons why burdock root helps us to become unstuck, right, is that in supporting the gallbladder and supporting the lymphatic system, it literally moves stuck material in your body. Okay. And so spiritually, when we're working with burdock, one of the things that I use burdock for, we can go to the next slide. Thank you so much. One of the things that I use burdock for is when I don't know what to do, when there's a decision that I have to make, but I'm not really clear on it, when I'm feeling very indecisive. Burdock is something that really helps me to focus, and it helps me to move and resolve on an issue. And so one of the things that, if I get writer's block, right? I'm a writer, and you're sitting there, you don't know how to proceed. Working with burdock is one of my favorite remedies for that situation. It literally, in producing more flexibility in your body, it helps to create more flexibility and creativity in your mind as well. And so what we are doing with this root practice, it's not mythology or folklore per se, right? We're looking at how the plant acts in the body and understanding how changing the physiological functions can change the mental function. And that is the way that I work my roots. Okay? Doesn't mean how other people work their roots is wrong. And it's important that the byproduct of our medicine way is regeneration. And so if I'm looking to get something in the world, isn't it beautiful that in that process, my body becomes more flexible, more beautiful, more shiny, more radiant, right? So when we work the roots by taking the medicine into our body to shape the external world, we actually create a healthier body as an outcome. And that's why we want you to practice herbalism in this way. Okay, next slide. And I'm checking the time. All right, so dandelion. Dandelion. All right, y'all. Somebody got a dandelion story to tell. Yeah, all these are going to be liver herbs, and they're liver herbs with different associations. So I want you to understand how organ systems work together, how they're partnered. All right, so who's going to tell me? Okay, I think Jamila, is moving so fast. Someone had a dandelion story. Can we get Jamila? Jamila, can you raise your hand? There you are. Tell us your dandelion story.
Let me step outside so I don't get interrupted. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So I was just going through a very difficult time in life. And I was having to make lots of like changes in my business.
Mm.
And I just felt like I was just like all over the place. I didn't know if I was coming or going. And also I was just having like some sluggish digestive issues. And I had
Mm.
never tried dandelion before. And I'm not like a coffee drinker either, but I love the smell of coffee. Um, and so even though I have like tons of dandelion that grows in my yard, at the time I didn't have like enough education about it to dig it up and roast the roots myself. So I ended up ordering the roots. And then when I got them in the mail, I roasted them in the oven. And I just remember like my entire house smelling like chocolate. And I
Yes.
was like, oh my God, that smells really good. And then I put it in my French press and it got like really dark, just like coffee. And I flavored it just like you would like a regular cup of coffee. And I was like, oh wow, okay, I could really do this. And like within minutes, I definitely had to go to the bathroom. I wasn't necessarily constipated, but I did have to go to the bathroom. But I can't explain it, but for some reason it just always calls me like the roots. It's like I
Yeah.
crave it, like especially like when it's closer towards the spring months and even sometimes in the winter just for warmness, like if I want something warm to drink in the morning.
Yes.
So that's my story with
Thank
dandelion, the
you.
roots.
Yes, we love to hear it. We love to hear so many elements from that story too, right? Dandelion enrooting us. So, hmm, dandelion for me, I strongly associate dandelion with the stomach spleen organ system. And I got that association because I developed obsessive compulsive disorder. I'm an herbalist. I'm weird. I already obsess over things, and that's what makes me great. But I had an obsession about something that I didn't want to be obsessed about, and it was taking me out, y'all. So I went to my favorite acupuncturist, Euthymia Cruz Montoya. Shout out to Muse Medicina. Um, and she said, I was like, well, what's going on? She said, well, you have a stomach spleen imbalance, Asia. I said, what that is? What does that mean? And so she gave me some tips. She was like, okay, well, you should go for a walk. You should, focus on sort of yellow foods, yellow colors, all of these things. And so I'm researching obsessive compulsive disorder. I'm like, okay, what is it? And I was like, all right, I'm going to reverse engineer. I'm going to reverse engineer the pharmaceuticals that are used for OCD. So I found the pharmaceuticals, I looked up the active constituents in the pharmaceuticals, and then I cross-referenced those constituents with plants to see which plants held those constituents. And guess who I found, y'all? Okay, no one's guessing. No one's guessing. Okay, there we go.
Dandelion.
That's right. Dandelion, especially through vitamin B1. Dandelion was a powerful source, and there was a pattern language because it was beans as well. So come to find out, when your stomach spleen is dysregulated, it causes circular thoughts, circular thinking, aka worry. But when we get to what dysregulates our stomach spleen, next slide, we find that this organ system is dysregulated by sugar, blood sugar dysregulation. Because if you think about it, sugar is the fuel of all life. So when we have too little sugar, that dysregulates our stomach spleen. And that causes us to be hangry, aka angry, because it's also hurting the liver. When we have too much sugar, right, we have glucose and insulin spikes, our cells become resistant to that glucose. And then our body goes into panic mode because sugar causes advanced glycation in products, which destroys every organ system. And so that again causes us to worry. We become concerned. Our adrenals, right? Our stress, the cortisol increases in our body, right? And so dandelion has this powerful function of helping to combat blood sugar dysregulation, hyperlipidemia, high cholesterol, all kinds of things through its work with the liver, but also its support of the stomach, spleen, organ system. Dandelion is one of my favorite herbs that support people who have sugar cravings. So especially, just like Jamila shared, when you have dandelion in the morning as your first flavor, it sets up the rest of your day for better blood sugar regulation. Okay. So dandelion is such an ally sort of in this regard. And importantly, right, dandelion does ground you and it roots you, but the way that it does that, right, the way that it does that, I believe, is through blood sugar regulation. Next slide. So again, one of the things that I use when I'm worried about a meeting, if I'm any kind of thing where you're overthinking, where your session, you're doing repetitive patterns, dandelion breaks that up. So shout out. Shout out to dandelion. All right, next herb, y'all. There will be a replay, and I'm also going to make sure that you all get the essays that go with these herbs. So we'll talk a little bit about that later so that you can do a deep dive with all the language and the pictures. All right, yellow dock, the last one, and me needing a time check. Where am I at, team? Am I okay?
You're super good,
You're great.
Asia. You have 30 minutes.
Okay. Oh, okay, I can relax. Thanks, team. All right, from unworthy to organized. Yellow Dock is in the house, y'all. Yellow Dock. I don't have favorites, just like people don't have favorite kids. But if I did have a favorite, yeah, I love Yellow Dock so much. So I want to check in. What is your favorite spring cleaning ritual? So put those in the chat. How, if you have one, because some folks don't have one. So what's your favorite spring cleaning ritual? How do you open to spring? Okay, resetting their altars. Thoughts, cleaning the house from the bottom to the top. That's right. Cleaning the baseboards. Love to see it. Some folks don't have one. Organizing new clothes. Wow. Look at all these clutter. You getting rid of the clutter, the closet, cleaning the linens, giving away clothes. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. The whole house, opening windows, music. Absolutely. Yes, cleaning the windows. Okay. Okay, so we know instinctively that spring is a time for cleaning. I like to say tidying. I like to say tidying. You know, we don't like cleanses, but spring is a time for tidying things up. Next slide, loves. And so let's talk a little bit about yellow dock. So, like we said before, each plant has an affinity to a specific organ system. All of these plants, all of them support the liver, and they all have a uniqueness in who else they're associated with. So what's fascinating about Rumix crispus here, yellow dock, is that when I was researching yellow dock, I love learning how First Nations people use it. I search for all the places where the plant has come from, and then I get into the myths, the theologies like of the people who held it because they know best. And I found that Native American folks, um, uh, in a book called Native Ethnobotany by Daniel E. Mormon, I think, found that they were using yellow dock as a lung tonic. And I was like, what? A lung tonic? They were using it, respiratory illnesses, coughs, all this stuff. And I was like, that's so weird because I learned that yellow dock was used for constipation. It's used against constipation and for iron, right? So why would two different groups of people be using a plant in different ways? And what is the rectifying force, right? So enter Chinese medicine. One of the things that I learned about yellow dock or about the lungs and the large intestines is that they're actually paired organs, right? So the shifts in our microbiome, right, in our large intestines and our gut can affect the microbes that are in our lungs and vice versa. Our lungs are what gives us access to taking in beauty, and our large intestines is what allows us to let go of distractions. And so without both of those functionings, that inhalation and exhalation, our body doesn't function. And yellow dock bridges both worlds. This plant is governed by the stomach or the lungs and the large intestines, but also the element of metal. And so when we take this understanding that our ancestors knew each other, we're talking we move to some of the teachings that are coming from sort of Ifa. One of my favorite orishas in sort of West African traditional religions is Ogun, who is the god of iron. And when I started researching Ogun, I found that his disharmonies perfectly corresponded with the metal element in Chinese medicine. And what was fascinating about Ogun is that one of the things that happened when he saw the impact of technology, the technology that he created on the world, is that he went off into retreat. It's one of my favorite stories. And in retreat, he left and went in the forest. He stopped bathing. The world stopped. Nothing worked without this god Ogun. And so the Orisha's like, what we gonna do? What we gonna do? And then one Orisha, her name's Oshun. She's Bae. She's like, let me shoot my shot. Let me try to talk him. Let me try to talk him, out of this funk that he's in, right? And so Oshun goes to the edge of the forest where Ogun is living, and she smells this nasty funk. Oh, what is that smell? And she follows the smell and she finds Ogun, right? And she has this little pot of honey, right? She has this little pot of honey on her hip. And she takes the honey, then she puts it on his lip. And then, 3 days later, the world starts moving again. Things start working again, right? This parable of Ogun and Oshun is so important to me because it describes what happens when our large intestines is dysregulated. We stop working. We become disorganized. Not only is the feces not moving out of our body, so it's accumulating along with the metabolites and the toxins of it, but then our external world starts to become disorganized and our house becomes a mess. Okay? So by supporting the liver large intestines axis with yellow dock, we start to get things moving again. And what's fascinating, because yellow dock has that affinity for iron, just like Ogun, is that the sweetness of honey coupled with the yellow dock, right, can support that proper functioning. So one of the powers, one of the beautiful things about yellow dock, this simple herb with the rust-colored seeds, is that when we start to work with yellow dock, not only does it evoke peristalsis, but unlike herbs like senna, which can be addictive and cause problem, there's such a small amount of the active metabolite that we could use it without harm, which is why it's been used with pregnant women and folks for centuries. So shout out to yellow dock, shout out to iron, but also shout out to the way that our ancestors' knowledge ways are so powerfully interconnected, right? And so as you're doing your spring cleaning, if you need some support, okay, and this is something that I have definitely experimented with and it works. The more you work with yellow dock, the cleaner your house becomes. Inside and outside, as within, so without, as below, so above. This is the practice of bioregional root work. All right. Next slide. All right, y'all. I hope we're on time. I think we're good. Are we good? I think we're good. I think
You're so good. You're so good.
Okay, y'all. So that is just the tip of the iceberg. I don't mix plants, so no. I'm a simpler. Okay. That's why y'all be all messed up. You be putting everything together. You can't tell who's doing what. Anyways, to bring us into closing, we're going to have a Q&A, so don't worry, you can ask me all the things. But I wanted to share a little bit more about how to deepen this knowledge. This presentation was very, very short, and I've worked with these herbs for years and years and years and have used them in my clinical practice, use them in spiritual ways, physical ways, all the ways. And so everyone who has enrolled today will receive a free yellow dock plant journey so that you can read all the nice words and the links and the resources and really learn, the anatomy and physiology and all the things that we can't do in a short amount of time. So a few days after this, you're going to go on a yellow dock plant journey. I might add a second. You might also have a dandelion plant journey too. We'll see. We'll see. All right. And I'm going to invite you to my Patreon community of practice. The community of practice is a space right now. And for this month only, it's $5 to join. And each month you get to come to an event called Petty Herbalist After Dark, where you get to sit, ask questions with me and my best friend, Karina Desroses. But for $5 a month, you get free access to an herbal circle. We have special guests. And then, of course, you get all of the essays, all of the plant journeys, and the ABCs of herbal medicine. And you learn herbal discernment, like why we don't mix the herbs together or how to craft these roots in the best way to get them to work for you. So you'll learn more about that. And I also wanted to share with you the upcoming Food Genius Mentorship. So if you're interested in understanding food from a medicinal worldview, in understanding ancestral plant medicine, ancestral food processing technologies, we have a monthly mentorship program where you could kick it with the girlies, and we're working with different plant families. And so right now, you can also find that, and I think it's $45 a month for that one. And then, of course, if you don't want to buy anything or do anything, check out the Petty Herbalist podcast. Okay, it's just me and my best friend, and we talk about herbs. We talk about herbs and food and spirituality and all the petty things, because for us, We want you all to practice herbal medicine like your life depends on it. Because my life has dependent on it. Okay? It's not oh, a little cute tea for play. Like sometimes you have to bring someone back from the dead. So this podcast really helps you to increase your herbal discernment in a way that is with laughter and humor and all the things that makes it easy to learn. And so I just want to thank all of you who came out, who showed up, who's getting the recording, to come and play and participate in my world and to practice herbal medicine as a people's medicine that is simple, safe, and powerful. And so look forward, all of you will be receiving the Yellow Dock plant journey, okay? I'm gonna sign you all up, so it's gonna be great.
Thank you so much, Asia. That was just a truly gorgeous presentation. I feel so inspired to work with those roots on a deeper level personally. And yeah, I just feel like you bring such genuine perspective and tried and true, like you've really walked the journey with these plants and you share that in your teachings. And so it's just such an honor and a gift to get to learn from you. And you're one of our favorite teachers in this program, I think. And I just want to invite everyone that's feeling that deep call to the herbs to join us on this 100-hour herbalism program that's about to set sail soon. And Asia's one of the beautiful educators there. And you can feel her unique perspective with plants and coming from this really rooted place that just is so inspiring to me and really refreshing. Like it's such a modern, of the moment perspective, and also tapping into this ancient wisdom that we're all remembering. So just your invitation to join us. My name is Gina Gibbons and I'm one of the teaching mentors here at Ecoversity. And yeah, the chat's just going off. So thank you so much, Asia. Thank you, thank you, thank you. There was so much beautiful information shared, and I think we're all going to take many gems with us along the way. And yeah, I just want to invite you all in the door as we're enrolling our 2025 cohort, and it's closing soon. So we can move on to the next slide. And if you're curious about this and want to learn more about this program, there's so much to say. We're not going to take up a lot of time right now, but we are going to have an open house this Saturday. So you can come and meet Serafina and Kat and myself and Celia and all the main teachers that are going to be in that program and just learn more about it. We'll go through each module. We'll go over how it works, how we come together on Zoom, kind of like this every week, and really nurture this beautiful worldwide community of plant lovers and people that want to remember how to take care of themselves and their loved ones through the plants. So join us on March 15th if you can. And if not, the replay will be sent just like this, so you don't have to be there live, but you are invited. And of course, we want to say thank you for showing up today to support Asia and her beautiful work and us here at Ecoversity. So you're getting a special discount with our lovely friend Burdock as the code, and that will expire on March 13th. So make sure to use it before then. And of course, there's always questions when you're thinking to enroll in a program like this. How does it work? Do I have enough time? Can I commit? All these things. How does the payment work? We've got you covered. We have a beautiful herbal mentor named Kara who can walk you through the whole process, and you can schedule a one-on-one call with her to make sure you're really the right fit for it and just get to know us more. There's so much to say, and so we don't want to take too much time to do that right now. But if you are feeling that call, I very much encourage you to listen and schedule a call with her. And just a reminder, like we said at the beginning, make sure to check your email after all of this. There's going to be a beautiful Herbal Calm ebook with a bunch of different recipes. As we all know, we got to nourish that nervous system right now and find ways to reconnect to the earth and ourselves. And there'll also be more information on how to connect with Asia, special offers through Ecoversity and all of that. So just be sure to check your email, and you can also send along this recording to anyone else that might be really interested in what Asia shared today. And now we'd like to open it up to Q&A. And there are a lot of questions that have already come through, but if you'd like to ask Asia directly, I invite you to raise your hand and you can go ahead and ask her that way. We give people a moment. I can go ahead and ask one of the questions that came through while you were speaking. Someone asked, is it best, I'm so curious too what your opinion on this is working with dandelion tea better than the roasting and non-roasting dandelion? Can you speak to that, and what do you prefer? Because I think typically a lot of folks find the roasted out there as that alternative coffee option.
Yeah, listen, dandelion is the most generous plant on earth. Every single part of dandelion, the root, the leaves, the flowers. I think I have my dandelion flower vinegar in here.
Yeah.
And so any way that you get dandelion in your body and that you like, that's the right way. So whatever it takes to get dandelion in your body, do it. Roasting the roots. If you have a coffee addiction, listen, coffee is not sustainable. It's grown in all kind of raggedy ways, and the people who grow that coffee are exploited. So what is it like to switch that out for what's growing in your backyard? And so all the ways of working with dandelion is a good way to work with dandelion.
I love that. Looks like Veronica has her hand raised.
Hi, Veronica.
Hi, Asia. This is great. Gina, all of you all, it's wonderful. As you've been naming these wonderful herbs, and I've used some of them at different times, but the one thing I've never done was you mentioned consistency, like staying with something for some months. And so, and you said, and then just as I was about to get a combination of a tea, you said, don't mix this. This is how you mess up. So, what would you suggest? And I'm definitely someone who has just been diagnosed with like a fatty liver, sluggish. I just finished 21 months of caregiving for my husband who passed away a couple months ago. So a lot of self-neglect, and I'm back on the self-care. What would you suggest? Like, where would I start? Which herb? I would just pick one of them, and how long, and just to see what my body does and how it does. I mean, you had me with all of them, and I'm such a compulsive naturalist, like, oh, let me try all of this. And then I was so glad you just caused me to put the brakes. I literally was about to push the purchase thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, this, was she talking to me? Anyway, what would you suggest?
Yeah. So first of all,
And by the way, my ancestors, me and collard greens and dandelions, my grandmother used to cook dandelion greens. So we
that's,
had to
yeah.
eat the greens, right, too.
Oh, I make them too. I make my collards with dandelion
Dandelion,
greens.
exactly.
That's the right way.
From
Okay.
Alabama, that's what they did. Yeah. So.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for your service. And that's the first thing. Like, thank you for stewarding your husband into the next life in a good way.
Awesome, man. 50
And I know
years, met in college, tall, dark, and handsome, gorgeous to the end.
wow.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, thank you. Like, I'm here with you.
Fine,
And
as we would
we're
say.
fine. Yes, and we're
Fine.
grateful. So, but those labors are labors. And so
Yes.
the sluggish liver isn't just the liver. And just so that y'all know, I do one-on-one herbal consultations, and you can find that on my website. So I won't be able to give you detailed advice or personalized advice, and I would encourage folks to go there. And I will say that what needs restoration is probably the kidneys, right? And
That came up
especially
too. And
working,
inflammation is really bad right now in my body.
yeah.
I just did a
So
physical.
working to remineralize is important. And then let's talk a little bit about simpling, because this is kind of what distinguishes my practice from other kinds of practices. So we craft one herb at a time, and we often work with one herb at a time. And there's a few reasons for that. The first reason is that if there are any side effects or things like that that we don't like, if it's all mixed together, we don't know who's doing what. And then we might just throw the whole thing out because we don't know what's making us feel weird. Second, when we work with one herb at a time, we get to build a relationship with that plant. We get to know it inside out. And when it's only one herb, then that means when we're sharing information about that herb, I can give you specific and exact advice about what yellow dock does because I only use yellow dock. You can't get the knowledge that I have by mixing stuff together because you need to develop a relationship with that plant. The other thing is about liberation. When you buy herbs and it's somebody's mix or someone's powder or someone's brew or whatever, there's nothing wrong with that. But if it works, then you have to continually go back to them for the mixture. And so that turns plants into a commodity. And I practice a people's medicine, herbal medicine as a people's medicine. And a people's medicine, we're able to communicate effectively what herbs do. We know embodied what herbs do, and we don't have to participate in commerce unless we choose to. The other thing is plants potentiate in the medicine making process. So if we mix a lot of herbs together, then the herbs never fully express themselves. And so by brewing them separately, you actually get the full expression. And if you would like to mix them later, I don't, but if you would like to mix them later, you'll be mixing fully expressed plants versus plants that are only halfway done. And I got this knowledge because I ran a fermented food company for many years and we crafted artisanal beverages. And so I had to learn how to perfectly extract the flavor, which come to find out is perfectly extracting the medicine. So I'm really particular about how I make my medicine. And then in terms of who your ally is, which one is growing outside your door?
Well,
Which,
I have dandelion, I have mint, it comes right outside my door. I have thyme.
mm.
Um, I don't have burdock. I don't have that. I
So if
did where I lived before, but I don't have it anymore.
so if dandelion is growing, it's because dandelion wants to serve.
Okay.
So allow dandelion to serve you the way that you served your husband.
Okay.
That's why she's there. She showed up. That's God. That's the call and response, baby. It's call and response. So if dandelion is there, dandelion is for you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing with us.
So beautiful. Jess is next. She had her hand up next.
Hi, Jess.
Sorry about that. I was trying to find my button. Hello.
Hi.
So my main question was, I know you can't give too much information, but about out of the three plants that you named, which one would be best for someone that has diabetes? My grandfather passed away from it. I watched him die, and I'm trying really hard to lessen sugars and get off it, but I always feel this need to have it, and I would love to figure out how to like get rid of that.
Yeah. So, sugar matters. When our lives are bitter, we want to call on the sweetness of the earth. Okay. So, we're not going to make sugar wrong. And B, herbs can help, but when we're thinking about healing, there are bigger boulders that we want to touch on first, and the herbal medicine can support those bigger things. And so, in terms of
Okay.
blood sugar regulation, we already talked about that. So, which herb? Which herb would support?
I guess mainly the dandelion.
Yes, right. That's the one that I talked about with the sugar cravings, but the pattern language is more important than the plant. So the pattern
Okay.
language of why dandelion is supportive is because of its bitter flavor. Okay, bitter flavors speak to the heart. So when our heart is broken and we call to the sweet earth, the remedy is actually to take on the bitter medicine of the heartbreak. And so any herbal bitter is going to support with blood sugar regulation. That's why ancestrally and traditionally in Europe, bitters were always served. In fact, the pattern of bitters supporting blood sugar regulation shows up at restaurants. The first dish that you're given is salad. Salads are rich with bitter greens.
This is true.
So having a salad before your meals can actually slow down the spikes in your blood glucose after the meal. And there are other things, right? You don't have to eliminate all the sweets from your life, but you can practice some food ordering. You can make sure that you have sweets after your meats. You can start the day with high protein breakfast. There's so many things. I'm teaching a course right now on blood sugar regulation because I think it's the key to longevity. And this is the season of spring, that we can best heal the liver. So
Yeah.
I told you which plant already. You don't need to second guess yourself. It's in the slide. And I want you to get
I'm sorry. I just had to make sure.
It's okay. I want you to get that the herbs that I don't talk about dangerous plants. So all the herbs that I teach are simple, safe, and effective. So you can try those on without feeling scared about a side effect. Okay.
Well, I
So
really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
thanks for the question. It's a great question. It's important for the season, y'all. That's the question of spring. All right. Y'all get it on point. Who else got a question on their spirit? And
I
also,
love it.
hi, Sparkle.
Hi. You're beautiful, by the way. I see myself in you. My dad is also Nigerian, but I was born here. So I just see myself soul food-wise. So thank you for doing this. So where I live, in this region, there's problems with the soil. Like there's a lot of lead. It's supposed to be more lead than Flint, Michigan. So they recommend that everything grows in like red raised beds and stuff like that as far as food. But my friend Pete, who has a farm like 20 minutes away, all of this stuff that you mentioned grows wild. So he takes me and he gets it, and I'm just like, kind of, and then the dandelions where I grow, like you said, the backyard, but it's all lead in the soil. Like, so I'm like, I want to take it. I sometimes chew it and spit it out. Like, what do you feel about that when it's like tainted soil? Like, should I just go for it and make a prayer, or like?
Yeah. So oftentimes I use the principle, well, first of all, the soil that's worst contaminated with land are agricultural lands. Sorry. The land that's most contaminated are agricultural lands. And researchers, especially urban gardeners, have done a lot of really powerful work in the issue that you're talking about. And what they have found is that
Just put it in your ear.
where there's a lot of compost, that the plants will not select to pull up heavy metals unless the soil is depleted. So what they found is that by having compost and applying compost, that the plants are going to pull from that instead of the contamination in the soil. And this is research done by lots of urban farming organizations because this is a concern across the country. The reason why foods grown in urban farms have less contamination than farms outside of the city is because they're using less compost because there's so much land. So we end up using more compost, therefore the plants aren't pulling up the heavy metals. And I also
Which way is the top and which way is the bottom?
I also did research that showed that the amount of lead that accumulates in plants is very little. And what's fascinating as well is that these roots support your liver in detoxifying lead. And they each have different affinities, right? So each root can support detoxifying something else. But it's like if you're The lead, if it's in the soil, then it's in the dust, it's in your house, it's everywhere. It's best to have something that's protecting you against that, even if there's a risk that it too is contaminated, because the food in the grocery store is not less contaminated than the weeds in the backyard. And no one's saying don't eat lettuce because there could be lead in it. There's more lead in your chocolate bar than there is in the dandelion. And we love chocolate. She's sacred, period. And and chocolate is not necessarily supporting your liver as powerfully as dandelion is, right? And so I would say have no fear, but also I would also say look at the plant. If the plant is looking janky and tired and not happy, leave it alone. But if the plant is gorgeous, it takes something to create that, right? So for me, I'm gonna take the plant, but everyone has to choose what works for them. I will take the plant. If it's pretty, then I'll take
And that
then I'll,
and that same reasoning goes for the so-called chemtrails too, right?
right.
Okay,
I
gotcha.
mean, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't really know about that, but
Okay.
but I will say that supporting your liver is going to support your detoxification pathways. And importantly, like the dandelion greens, they help produce the bile. They also give us soluble and insoluble fiber, which helps to clear out the things. And so like we need that. We need that medicine. And so that's my position as an urban herbalist who has to be confronted with these things all the time. That's my position. So thank you for asking that question.
Absolutely. And you're more like a sparkling goddess. I just have to say it. Like you just have this, whatever you're doing, Ashe.
What did I say about burdock root? Y'all think I'm just making this up? No.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sparkle.
I love that. It's so real, and I think we're all faced with that kind of question right now of like, where do we harvest? And that was actually asked in the chat as well, collecting dandelions from sprayed yards. And so I assume your response would be similar.
Yeah, because if it's sprayed, then it's going to be dead looking. So here's the thing, like even the organic vegetables are not organic, and there are more heavy metals on farms than there are in urban environments. So it's like we are constantly exposed. If we are going to get exposed, let it be from something that heals the problem.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, y'all. Nothing's pure. And so I have friends who will go off in the forest and and to get their plants, but their roots don't work as strong as mine do, because the roots growing near you are the roots that are for you.
I believe that deeply. They're acclimated to where we are.
I think they acclimate, and I think they also acclimate to toxicity. Like you could look at it in the inulin and burdock roots, right? The burdock roots that are closest to traffic. Oh, why do there's like this much inulin when you tincture it versus the burdock root that you cultivated in your garden bed has like no inulin at all. So the plants have what's called plant defense mechanisms. And so the plants are also responding, and their chemical defenses are the medicines that we consume. That's why I love wildcrafting, because I want the plants that have a little stress, because then I adapt to their stressors. All right, that's why I'm a wild plant girly. It is relational, period. So, great question.
Love it.
Strength comes from adversity. It really does. It really, and that's why we work the weeds, because then we don't have to be worried about over harvesting and all of these things. You can, who gonna over harvest dandelion?
Good luck.
Show me. Right?
Yeah, your neighbors will beg you to come into their lawn and harvest for them.
And then everyone loves you because you clean up all their weeds. Isn't that great to be loved? Tending the earth. All right. So we have some more questions. Yeah, I love these questions. I'm so happy.
I know we have time too. We still have 20 more minutes. So people feel free to ask your questions in the chat, and we'll keep gathering them. And we've got 2 or 3 or 4 more hands already. So Maria, you're next.
Hi, Maria. Where's Maria at?
I'm here.
Hi, baby. Hi.
Nice to see you. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah.
You are in many ways an answer to my call and my prayers. I'm Greek. I don't know if you know much about um, Claudius Galen of Pergamum.
Ooh.
No?
Honey, you're gonna have to teach me.
Okay. Oh,
Okay.
girl. Oh, girl. Claudius Galen of Pergamum was a famous Greek physician whose tenets in medicine lasted 500 years.
Wow.
He was, oh, I just got the shivers. I called my daughter Galeni, actually. Okay. And actually, can you believe it? When she was a kid, I used to say to her, Galeni, you're named after a famous Greek doctor whose tenets in medicine lasted 500 years. Like, if you smell or taste your urine, you have diabetes and it's sweet. You have diabetes. Okay. This is a man who used to be the physician to the Emperor Claudius Aurelius and the gladiators in Rome. He had the original Herbal Bible, which I personally now we're starting to discover. The Vatican has stolen all these incredible things because they're going to be exposed very soon. Okay. They got jealous of him and drove him out of Italy. And they say that they burned his Bible. They didn't burn the Bible, they just kept it for themselves. Now, like, wow. Okay. Like, wow. So I thought, oh, wow. I wonder if you knew about this person. The herbal remedies, like you're talking about, um, it's interesting because,
So
um,
I'm gonna cut in
yeah.
because I want other people to be able to answer their questions, but I
Yep.
want to affirm and uplift something that you shared, which is burning women in Europe was burning the Bible. And it's absolutely true. You see, the witches of Europe were actually the brewers, right? They were the ones making the herbal beers. And once they outcompeted them, they had the little pointy hat because that was like, we got the brew. But after they outcompeted them, it was the church who took on beer brewing and mandated that hops be added to it, and hops is a downer. So it created, so the people, the Europeans, the Western Europeans who colonized Latin America and in all these places, they were A, drunk. They were constantly drinking alcohol, but B, they were being sedated by the hops, right? And so when we're thinking about the liver and anger, right? These cultures who, because of sanitation or whatever, were exposed to lots of alcohol on a daily basis, all of their livers, right? And so when we think about the brutality of colonization, we have to remember the brutality that comes from a liver that's not able to be regulated. So I just wanted to name the importance of these conversations and how our wisdom keepers were not only demonized, but that their wisdom was extracted. Um, and so thank you so much for bringing.
I actually have a question for you. Do you think that someone such as myself with chronic severe anemia and the gift of ulcerative colitis can heal myself with herbals stuff?
I practice herbal medicine and Buddhist medicine. And so ulcerative colitis is also about what we're eating. And if there's iron malabsorption, um, because your organ systems aren't able to extract the nutrients, I bet that you have low stomach acid as well. So there's a pattern language of each body. Yes, herbs can help, and we have to stop the harm. So we have to look at what are the traditional, so I don't know if you're eating traditional Mediterranean cuisine, but if we work together, we would look at those foods from your own culture, from grandma's cookbook, that would heal it. I think that foods are the big rock, and then medicine is like herbal medicine is like the water, and we need both, because if you use the herbs but you're still eating food that hurts your colon, then that's not workable. So we shift the nutrition and the lifestyle, and then we complement that with the herbs.
Do you do,
And yes,
do you,
you can,
sorry, go ahead. Yes, go ahead, answer, sorry.
yeah, you can heal it. Why would you not? If God regenerates the land, why would he not they, she, we
Right.
regenerate regenerate our bodies. All of our organ systems regenerate on cycles. So some of them regenerate every 6 weeks, some of them regenerate every month, some of them like the liver. Okay, anyways. So yeah, each organ actually can heal itself. We just have to stop harming it, and then we have to support it. The plants, why plant medicine is powerful is that plants hold, if we were, if we all came from one source, right? Then every single thing in us is reflected outside of us. And so there is a plant that has an affinity for the lungs, right? But it also holds the memory of the lungs. So when we eat the lung affinity plant, it helps our lungs remember how to function. And I think that's how herbal medicine works. And if we find the correspondences, then we can get to the root of the problems.
So just last question, do you do Zoom or consults over the phone with people?
I do. I do consults online.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for those questions. And I know a lot of people are dealing with digestive issues because of colonization. The roots that I named, these are roots from Europe. And they came over to this country with European colonizers in order to heal the harms of colonization. The best dandelion in the world, the most beautiful, you can find it outside of 7-Eleven. Right? The plants go to where they are needed. It's part of the design. It's part of the divinity. It's why we know that we're loved. It's because the plants show up. The exact ones we need, they're the ones that show up for us. Um, so yeah, absolutely. And these are my views. You don't have to take them on or anything like that, but this is the medicine way that I teach. All right, there's more questions. Who's next? Who we-
Demetria.
Demetria, what's up?
Uh-oh.
Where's
I'm right here. Hello.
Hi.
So I don't have a question, but like what you're saying is resonate with me about saying like what is outside is for us. And I just wanted to quickly share that I purchased a house about 5 years ago, open lot, they cleaned it, did whatever. So every spring I allow my yard to grow. And of course people are like, what the hell is she doing? It looks crazy. She needs to mow her lawn. People come like, when are you gonna mow? And I said, when I feel like it, when my plants are done and when I finish figuring out what's growing in my yard. So now I have 2 blackberry bushes naturally growing in my front yard, a blackberry bush growing on the side of my house. I have persimmon trees growing in my yard. And I'm just like, you guys wanted me to cut down all this good stuff.
Right.
And I'm so sad I don't have any dandelions anywhere though.
But you have what you need, like
right.
Some Stellaria media, and also anthocyanins, right? So not only are berries, my favorite sweet is a berry, y'all.
Yeah.
When I talked about advanced glycation in products, the way that sugar can glycate with the protein in our body, sometimes fats as well, there are specific herbal constituents that can dissolve the glycations. Okay. All right. I'm not going to go into everything, but those purple fruit, especially those purple berries with their fiber, okay, they really support in undoing that glycation, and it speaks specifically to the liver and to the kidney. So them berries are for you. Have them. You can make them into oxymels. You could put them in vinegar. I love a vinegar.
I'll have to try that vinegar.
Apple cider vinegar, fill a jar.
So we make blackberries and dumplings. The kids love it.
Okay, that sounds bomb. Yeah. And some plants like berries become more medicinally active when they're cooked. And that's why European tradition is of stewing the berries. It also makes the nutrients more available. So like use them berries. In permaculture, what Stephen was talking about, I teach permaculture here in Denver. We always observe and interact the land before we try to put our stamp on it. So I love that you were like, nah, I'm going to observe and interact and then I'm going to decide what to do. So shout out to you for that. And congratulations on the new home.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
All
you so
right.
much, Carla. You're next.
Hi, Carla.
Hello, good evening, and thank you. I feel like you've been serving just a whole word and then some. And so I am new on the kind of formal round of herbal reconnection, and also realizing that it's been most of my life, but in terms of just seeking out webinars and trying to figure out where am I going to go in my formal studies. But I'm a licensed massage therapist, and so where I live in New York, in Harlem on Lenape land, in my training, they definitely had to learn both Eastern and Western. So I'm familiar with some of the like 5 element theory, things like that, because of my training in massage and worked at like a school for traditional Chinese medicine where I taught massage. And my question is as an urban dweller who does have a little bit of like balcony space here in New York to do some container growing, I find often in these spaces of doing webinars, people so often talk about what grows right outside your door. But in New York, where we have summers where I'll start to grow something, but then they spray for mosquitoes, and you like, or something will get done outside the building and we don't get warning. And you're like, oh, I was in the middle of growing something, and then paint's now on the things I've been growing for weeks or months. Just if there's recommendations, and I'll take this part in the chat to respect time, either book wise or site wise, for those of us that have less access to space, that I don't have that piece of just what shows up for me in terms of that regional biodiversity, and kind of how do you decide when you purchase versus if you have either indoor space to grow or outdoor space, and also if you have any word about how to maybe deal with, or again, if there's a resource when you have water runoff or things like that in urban situations, because I feel like I just haven't been able to find some good information about that piece when you're urban and I don't have a backyard of being able to control besides rain.
Yes.
Thank you.
I love that. Thank you, Carla. So the Petty Herbalist podcast is a great space to learn more about this stuff and this medicine way and get these words. Shout out for you being a hands-on healer. Okay, like word. Love to hear it. I lived in New York for several years. That's where I went to school. And I go back to visit frequently, and there are always herbs. They're just at the parks, and you just be looking weird, but you have to learn how to speak to God in public. And people are going to ask questions, and you're going to be like, this is this root, and this is what it does. And it's super cute, but you have to go. They are at the parks, they are in the little planters. And so my best friend on the podcast, Karina, she grew dandelion in a pot. And I was like, I love the wild plants. And her dandelion tincture hit. And it was a whole conversation about value, because I'm like, why would you grow dandelion? Dandelion grows it. But she really devoted herself to cultivating dandelion. And it really sat with this deep conversation about value and about worthiness and about how we think that the most powerful herbs are the ones that are furthest away, when and we do that to our family, we do that to our friends. We think that exotic is nice, and that's just fueling capitalism that requires exoticism to get you to not do what your ancestors have done for years and years. So when it comes to got it, you don't want a wild craft. My medicine way, fresh plants. So we're not using ashy, dried. Nope. So
I'm down the wildcraft. Like I'm just like, if
yeah.
you're like, hey, New York, it's fine. I'm like, I have,
So it is
activated charcoal and the other like if
I want you to
if
go
there's
out there.
recommendations on what to do,
Yeah,
then like yes.
and then also though, a lot of the best herbal shops, the ones the ones that I support are the ones who are harvesting plants from that bioregion. because there are large herbal distributors, and thank goodness, because we didn't have access to that 20 some odd years ago. We had to get the little ashy, crusty, questionable. I've been to the place. I've seen them herbs, and I would never. Okay, I would never.
Oh
So
no, I
thank
used to have to cook herbs from acupuncturists. Oh, but good 20. Yeah, I'm older than I look. So yes, I
yeah,
would get the herbs in a brown paper bag and my
yeah,
kitchen would be smelling. Yes.
yeah. So I would say herb shops, if they're the best, then they're wild crafting local herbs, and then it's worth the money to get it from them. Otherwise, we have really high quality herbal distributors in the US. Period. Like they're great. Mountain Rose and Frontier, Star West Botanicals. Um, there are more, but we do have good ones. And yeah, like if you want, and then the other thing, this is another spiritual thing ish, because I don't believe that spirituality and everyday life is different. It's all one thing. But when I had back pain, the herbs came to me via friends giving me the herb, right? So it was also like the medicine you need is outside your door, but sometimes it's not growing on the ground. Sometimes someone is giving you plant medicine, and that's the plant, because plants can't walk. So I believe that they time travel and they they communicate through. There's a lot of philosophy here, but plants have a way of getting to us, rather it's us harvesting it outside or a friend being like, "Hey, like let me tell you about this plant I was working with." So I appreciate those questions, and I'd be looking at all the plants in New York, so I know that they're there when I go to the city. They're there. And I know you got to catch them quick before they're sprayed or something like that, but that just forces you to be ready so that you don't have to get ready, right? You got to stay ready.
Right.
But
Yes.
you can get them and you can buy them. It's okay.
Oh, thank you. And since you shared that beautiful story, I mean, this is my little one, but I'll just show a little peeking of my proteosa that's growing here because you shared your Ogun story of my
Yes.
baby.
I love to see it.
Yes. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, thank you for your question. Oh, so many hands. I wish we could do this for longer.
I know, I know. Belinda
So
was up, but she's gone now. Raise your
wait,
hand
I
again,
think,
Belinda.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
can she raise her hand again?
Yeah. We'll go on to the next one. Sheila. Oh,
There she
Melinda. Okay,
is.
there you are.
And this might be
You
the
were
last
patiently
question.
waiting.
Hi, hello, darling.
Hey, I just wanted to thank you for your time and energy. I love you so much right now. Like you were talking about Ogun and you see my last name, so you were just speaking directly to my heart. Like, but one specific thing that I had, like I got into herbalism through Ayurveda, because I have sickle cell trait, my husband has sickle cell trait, and so our daughter has sickle cell disease. And so I was kind of trying to like find a way to work with herbalism to work with her, support her health wise. And so the way that I came across yellow dock and burdock root was actually through like people talking about it in the sickle cell community. So I
Oh,
wanted to see if you had like any recommendations in terms of like how to support someone with sickle cell disease or how to work with yellow dock and burdock root for a child. So like when she was younger, she's 8 now, but when she was younger, we used to do a lot of roasted dandelion tea and she used to love it. But yeah, so now we're kind of just trying to like figure out, the from the bioregional aspect. That was another thing that I didn't really like about the Ayurveda that I was learning is that we were getting a lot of the herbs from other places, but where we lived, we just moved to California, but where we lived in Ohio, burdock root grew in the backyard. Like it was just everywhere in the backyard. But now that we're in California, we don't have burdock root anymore. So I'm like, so should we not work with that anymore? Or like you said, they can't get up and walk. So
yeah.
because it was so prolific, like, should we still try to work with it? I just kind of want to hear you speak some more. So,
Yeah. So sickle cell, I have sickle cell traits as well, which is why it's hard for me to live in this altitude. And
I figured
I
you might when you said that. I was like, I
yeah.
think it's straight.
So we got little red blood cells that are nimble, and it's awesome. because what having this trait has meant is that now I have a medicine bag for any altitude and any climate. So I could breathe at altitude with my roots. Okay. So I got, when I was in Bolivia and I was passing out, and the cholitas threw me a bag of coca leaves, and they were like, "We're tired. Are you passing out?" And I was like, "Me too." And now chewing on that coca leaf, and I was like, wow, this is a miracle. This is a miracle. So plants do support us. There's a book called Ancestral Genomics, and it tells us about the specific adaptations that really West and Central Africans, but also all the equator, because sickle cell is not just Africa, it's the entire equatorial belt. And it shows you that like these traits, they're maladaptive, but sometimes they have powerful adaptations, such as immunity, like boosting and resistance to other diseases. So I want you to be in touch with like the beauty of having, yes, Ancestral Genomics, that's the book. The beauty of having these traits, and then also discern, like once you discern which roots, which herbs work the best, they're yours. So wherever you go, they're still yours and you can still work. It's not like you know, your family's from Texas, you move to Colorado, you don't talk to them anymore. Like, no, you do the work and you go see them and they come see you. And then
Lady is a godsend.
okay, yeah. So just know that there are maladaptations, but also cool adaptations that come with the sickle cell trait. And then, of course, depending on how it presents, that's how we would treat it as an herbalist. So we're not going to mess with our genes or try to grow the size of our red blood cells, but it's also going to tell us a little bit about how we should support ourselves nutritionally. And so if it's presenting as anemia, then we already named who the ally is, right? So how is it presenting? And then find the roots, and then also like keep looking, because it's always out there. Like the remedy is always out there. So I just want you to appreciate the sickle cell trait. I know that it causes hardship in the family, and that it's a lot of adaptation, but it can be a blessing. So anyone who comes to Colorado, I can get rid of their altitude sickness because I have this trait and I had to learn how to survive here. So I just want to uplift you and your family. And yeah,
And
you can, yeah.
so when you're working with yellow dock and molasses, because I know you talked about that in the very beginning, is that yellow dock tincture or do you do like a decoction?
So it depends. The decoction is quite bitter. I also like to decoct the leaves with with yellow dock as well, because they have um soluble fiber, which also helps to move the bowels. It also has oxalic acid, which is can be neutralized by something sour. So the combination of like if you do a decoction, I do the whole plant plus the molasses plus lemon juice is what I do. But that's bitter, and she may not like the bitter medicine. Right, she may not like the bitter medicine. So I like the tincture of the fresh yellow dock, and I put some of the leaves in that tincture as well. And then I focus on high iron foods, and I'm sure you know what those are, but herbal infusions are really powerful. So you can come. Petty Herbalist After Dark is on the 20th.
I'm coming.
Okay, and we have Q&As at Petty Herbalist After Dark, so y'all can continue to ask these questions in a smaller space. But yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
absolutely.
Thank you, Asia. Do you want to take one more question, shall we?
We're late. We're going
I know
over.
we're already over.
I'm looking at the Ecoversity team. Like if y'all want to take one more, then I can do one more.
We've agreed to take one more, yeah. So
Okay.
Sheila, you're the final
Oh my
question
goodness.
this
Oh
evening.
my goodness. Praise God. Praise the Most High
Yeah.
God. This is all. I put a comment in there really quickly. I don't know how I landed here because I have my hand in so much, but I know that the universe and God wanted me here. And Asia, bless you. I will sign up for a consultation. Quickly, I wanted to know recently my lab works had me in the bad area with LDL cholesterol. My ratios used to be really good years ago when I got some good life insurance, but I'm older now. What do you recommend for that?
Well, I can't make recommendations, but I will say that LDL is pretty much useless. Um, and let me just name that cholesterol is sacred. If we have a cold and our body has to rebuild, our cholesterol increase. Cholesterol is the building blocks of every cell in our body. So the presence of cholesterol, that's my dog Jasper, is saying that we need repair. So when it comes to folks who are experiencing sort of dyslipidemia or too many fatty acids in their blood and things like that, I take a more holistic approach of yoga nidra and other stress lowering things. And then, of course, with cholesterol and any fats, we talked a little bit about the gallbladder official in the lymphatic system, didn't we? So, what ally might you use to support your fats?
Burdock.
That's right. Ooh, look at y'all. Look at y'all learning. Okay, and burdock has inulin, right? Which is a fiber, and fibers help to sweep out all the things. So the pattern language for working with lots of fat in the blood or dyslipidemia or whatever is fiber. Good old, not fake, real like collard greens. Okay, that's my favorite with the, but plant regular food fibers support that overall, as long as you can digest them well, as long as you don't have other digestive issues. But yeah, so listen, y'all learned the pattern language. I'm proud of y'all. I'm
Thank you,
impressed.
Queen.
Thank you. Answer
Such
your
beautiful,
question.
beautiful wisdom. Oh,
Thanks
there's
for
Sheila.
Hi, Sheila. Oh, thank you all so much for staying a little bit longer with me, asking such great questions, but also taking on the teachings. Okay, shout out. So I just appreciate all of you for giving me some of your time, some of your energy, and uplifting this movement to make herbal medicine a people's medicine. So thank
Thank
you.
you. This
Thank
was
you, Gina.
great.
Thank you, Asia. Yes, it's been wonderful.
Great.
And all the questions too.
Awesome. Thank you all.